us try to look into this, that what happens or what are the important relationships between the flow rate and the head, that is such a machine having a high flow rate or low flow rate, is it going to have a high head or a low head. First of all, the inlet area of these types of machines is not restricted. If you consider in place of this a radial flow machine, the inlet area is restricted because the inlet diameter is small, the outlet diameter is large, and whatever is the inlet flow, the same flow will go out. Because the inlet area is restricted, you may only have limited flow. So one thing we can conclude, that if you compare a radial flow machine with this axial flow machine, here you expect the flow rate to be higher than that of a radial flow machine. Now let us consider that what should be the corresponding head. So now if you consider this V theta 2, so V theta 2 you can write as U2. What is V theta 2? The V theta 2 is the this one. So that is equal to U2 minus VZ2 cot beta 2, right. This angle is 90 degree, so you can clearly write it from the trigonometry, and Vz2 is like you have this as same as q divided by pi by 4 d tip square minus d half square, okay. So that means how will the power depend on beta 2. So if you increase beta 2, what will happen? Cot beta 2 will increase or decrease? It will decrease, and therefore you expect that the head should be more. So you will have a temptation of increasing beta 2. In reality you cannot do that, we have discussed about this why. Just think about it, think that you have a aerofoil section, you have the angle of the blade not well oriented with the direction of the flow, but it is getting more and more deviated from the direction of the flow as you increase beta. So that means, so this is related to the angle of attack that we have seen for our aerofoil section. So more the higher value of this angle you make, you will come to a state when there will be a very easy flow separation, and that is known as stalling of aerofoil, right. So increase of this is limited by the stalling effect, and you cannot increase it indiscriminately to a great extent. That is why you cannot have a very high head in a axial flow machine, that is limited by the possibility of increasing it in a way that it at least it should avoid stalling, it should not be increased indiscriminately. So that means these devices will operate on high Q but low head. Remember the expression for the specific speed, n root q by h to the power 3 by 4 for a pump. So if you have a high flow rate and low head, that will mean a high specific speed. That is why the specific speeds of axial flow pumps are much higher than those for the radial flow pumps. So from the specific speed you may select the type of the pump even. If you are having to deal with a certain range of specific speed which is the highest of all possible pumps, then your choice must be axial flow pumps, your choice cannot be radial flow pumps because of the limits in the Q and H. There is some type of pump which is in between the axial flow and the radial flow, and the name itself is like that, it is called as a mixed flow pump. So in the mixed flow pump, a part of the flow is axial and the part of the flow is radial. So if you have a mixed flow pump, that means you have just I am drawing it very schematically, do not think that the mixed flow pump will actually be like this, but the whole idea is that if you consider the incipient flow, now if you consider the change in direction of the flow, it is neither radial nor axial, and therefore it will have a sort of in between characteristic between the radial flow and the axial flow. So typically the radial flow pumps will have specific speed say between 10 to maybe 10 to 50. See, do not take these as very figures with great sanctity, these are just rough ideas. If you consider an axial flow pump, maybe its specific speed will be in the range of maybe 300 to 500 just as an example, and so or maybe 150 to 300 as just beyond 300 is not too common, say 150 to 300, this is we are talking about typical specific speeds and the types of pumps. So this is axial, this is radial, and mixed flow is something in between say roughly between 50 to 150 like that. Again these are very rough figures, for the specific speeds the units have been put here according to the units that we have mentioned, and then these are of course actually this is not dimensionless, but the corresponding number by putting those units whatever you get that is quoted. So that is one important thing. Important thing is not to just be very particular about the specific values, but to understand that if you go for higher and higher specific speeds, it is the axial flow pump that is the characteristic that is going to be more common to that feature or behavior. Okay. Now the next thing that we will discuss is that some very important phenomena known as cavitation in a hydraulic machine, and as an example since we started with the centrifugal pumps, we will try to understand how cavitation occurs in a centrifugal pump. So first of all we will try to understand what is a cavitation and then we will try to characterize it. So cavitation in hydraulic machines in general. So what is cavitation? Say you have a hydraulic machine in which at some point the pressure falls below the vapor pressure at the prevailing temperature. Say it is the machine is handling liquid water, at a given point the pressure becomes low, it becomes low enough such that it is less than the corresponding vapor pressure. Vapor pressure is a function of the temperature that is there. So for a particular temperature you will have a particular vapor pressure. Let us say that the pressure is below the vapor pressure, then what will happen? Bubbles will be formed. When these bubbles are formed, now see these devices are having the flow. So when bubbles are formed, these bubbles will move from one place to the other place because of the flow. So with the flow these bubbles are likely to move to a place where the pressure is higher, and if the bubbles now move to a place where the pressure is higher, what will happen? Say the bubble is again getting collapsed. So once the bubble gets collapsed, the bubbles were occupying greater volumes because of the formation of the vapor phase. When the bubbles are getting collapsed, then you are having a sort of void that is being created because of the collapse of the bubbles. Then what will happen? Liquid particles or liquid molecules from all sides will try to rush into that space to fill up that void, and because of strong collision between those molecules there will be an extremely large increase of pressure. So that increase of pressure in a typical hydraulic machine, if it is not designed properly, may be say of the order of 400 megapascal also, it may be as high as that. This pressure is think how high it is. 1 atmosphere is roughly 100 kilopascal and this is like 400 megapascal. So it is such a high pressure, it may not last for a long time and its range of operation it may not be wide, but it has its detrimental consequences. What are that? See, there is a time scale over which these bubbles are formed and these bubbles are collapsed, and accordingly the blades of the fluid machine may be subjected to a fluctuating pressure. So because of the fluctuating pressure there may be a failure of the blades, and that is known as a fatigue failure in design. So one is that there may be a fluctuating force on the blades and the blades themselves may fail to operate. Sometimes the failure is so obvious that this pressure is good enough to take away some material out of the blade. So, the blade loses some material, this is known as cavitation pitting. So, it gives a sort of spongy appearance, so because of dislodging of some of the parts of the material from the blade. So, that is one of the very detrimental consequences. Not only that, there is a lot of vibration and noise that is being created. So, because of this time dependent phenomenon, there is likely to be a lot of vibration, and because of this vibration there may be some instability in the system. There is a lot of noise also, and the noise, if this phenomenon is very serious, the noise is as if gravels are passing through fluid. So, it is such a high noise, and the noise may be of varying frequency, like typically small size bubbles will be associated with large frequency noise, and large size bubbles will be associated with lower frequency noise. So, depending on the size distribution of bubbles, you may have large wide range of frequency spectrum over which this noise is emitted. So, because of this noise, vibration and physical loss of material from the blade, it is not at all a desirable feature in a hydraulic machine. And what is that which has created this? It is not just the formation of bubbles. If the bubbles are just formed, it is okay, but bubbles are going to a place where the pressure is greater than the vapor pressure, and therefore the bubbles have collapsed. So, simultaneous formation and collapse of bubbles because of the change in pressure, that is what is the sole reasoning behind these type of like problem in the machine. So, we have to understand this is known as cavitation. So, it is not just the inception of bubbles, it is not just the nucleation of bubbles, but their subsequent collapse because of migrating to a higher pressure region that gives rise to this phenomenon. So, what is the big origin of this phenomenon? The big origin of this phenomenon is formation of regions of low pressure, because if the pressure falls below the vapor pressure, then only the bubbles may be formed. So, we have to see that what portions of the devices or what portions of the machines are prone to such very low pressures. So, let us take an example of a centrifugal pump. So, let us say that this is the schematic of the suction side. So, we are not going into the other side, but let us just concentrate on the suction side. So, this is 1 and let us say this is the point S. So, if you apply the energy equation, you have P1 by rho g plus V1 square by 2g, let us call this height as Hs, is equal to Ps by rho g plus Vs square by 2g plus Hs plus Hsf. So, if you recall that this is small and this is 0 as gauge, that means 1 atmospheric pressure. So, what is Ps by rho g? This is minus of Vs square by 2g plus Hs plus Hsf. Okay. So, we have to keep in mind here that we are talking about the pressure at the point S, the possibility of being it very low. See, we can clearly see that it is a suction pressure or a negative pressure below atmospheric pressure if you consider this sump to be located below the axis of the pump, that is if this Hs itself is positive, because Hsf is always positive, it is a loss, Vs square by 2g is always positive, Hs may be positive or negative depending on whether this reservoir supply reservoir is placed below the axis of the pump or above the axis of the pump. In some cases, to avoid the strong negativity of this supply reservoir is put above the axis of the pump, and in many industries classical example is if you have a condensate extraction pump or maybe boiler feed pump in a power plant, in a steam power plant. Now, one has to keep in mind here that like no matter whatever is the Hs, positive or negative, this is the location which is prone to very low pressure. So, we have to put a lot of attention on this one, and we can infer that if the pressure at this point is less than the corresponding vapor pressure, then you may have a cavitation. So we may consider that a safety margin. What is that? Ps by rho g minus P vapor by rho g. We are talking about head, so we are dividing it by rho g. Typically in symbolic terms we write rho g by a symbol gamma, which is the specific weight. So if this is positive, that means more and more positive this is, that means more and more safe it is as compared to the more and more safe it is to avoid cavitation. In practice what is done is a safety margin is defined where you also add a Vs square by 2g with this one, because what helps you to have a positive head at the suction is the kinetic energy. So this is given as a terminology of NPSH or net positive suction head. Net positive suction head is given by Ps by gamma plus Vs square by 2g minus P vapor by gamma. Now what is this? This is the expectation from the pump side, that is the pump expects that this a net positive head of this amount should be there, this should be first positive. So this is like a net positive head, this is physically an indicator of the net positive head over and above the vapor pressure head that is there at the suction, that is a physical meaning of it. But more importantly, see, this does not in this particular form, when you write this you say that you have a suction pressure, you have a vapor pressure, and you do not have any relation of this equation or this expression with what happens in the system where the pump is there. So this is the demand of a positive suction head from the pump. So pump expects this net positive suction head. So this is also known as NPSH required. What is the net positive suction head that is available? It depends on the system in which the pump is located. So let us try to relate this with what happens in the system. So in the system, see, you can write, so you have, so let us consider this equation. So if you write it for the system, then just let us write one more step. You have Ps by rho g plus Vs square by 2g. Now let us just not write it as the gauge pressure. So this, in place of writing this as 0 gauge, let us write it as P atmosphere by rho g, because we want to write an expression which should not be dependent on whether it is a gauge pressure or an absolute pressure. So let us write the pressure properly without considering it as a gauge reference. So then this expression, you from this what you can write, Ps by rho g plus Vs square by 2g minus P atmosphere by rho g is equal to what? Minus Hs minus Hsf, right. So what we want is Ps by gamma plus Vs square by 2g minus P vapor by gamma. So Ps by gamma plus Vs square by 2g is P atmosphere by gamma minus Hs minus Hsf. So this becomes P atmosphere by gamma minus P vapor by gamma minus Hs minus Hsf from this expression. Okay. So when you write this, see the same expression we are writing. Here we have focused on what is the requirement of the pump, here we are focusing on what you get from the system, because now here you have Hs and Hsf which are dependent on the system characteristics. So what is the part of this lift and what is the head loss at this section. So this we call as NPSH available. That is looking it in form of a requirement, a demand supply situation. This is what is the NPSH that is demanded by the pump. This is the NPSH that the system gives to the pump, that is available to the pump from the system, and if whatever is available is greater than whatever is required, then it will be a cavitation free operation. So we can say that for cavitation free operation, you have NPSH available greater than NPSH required. That means the system must be good enough to give sufficient amount of net positive suction head so that it is more than what is required by the pump. So if you make a sketch of this NPSH versus Q or the flow rate, let us say we make a graph of NPSH versus Q. So first of all let us make a plot of NPSH required versus Q. So NPSH required, will it increase with Q or decrease with Q? See, if you have a higher Q, you have a higher Vs. So that means NPSH required will increase with Q. So NPSH required will be something like this. NPSH available, will it increase with Q or will it decrease with Q? What is the key here? The key is this head loss term. Head loss will increase with Q and it is a minus of the head loss, therefore NPSH available will decrease with Q. So NPSH available will be somewhat like this. So you can clearly see that there is a point of intersection. To the right of it you have NPSH required is more than NPSH available, that means the system is not able to supply enough NPSH and therefore this will indicate a cavitation, and if NPSH available is more than NPSH required, that will indicate that it is a cavitation free operation. So this is sort of cavitation free. When a cavitation has occurred, it may be important to have plots of certain characteristics. One is the efficiency. So efficiency of the fluid machine. So before that we have to see that there is a very important parameter which is considered to be a cavitation parameter, which in a non-dimensional way determines the extent of the cavitation or the occurrence of the cavitation, that is given by a parameter known as Thomas cavitation parameter. It is a non-dimensional form of NPSH available. So it is NPSH available divided by the total head of the pump. So if you have sigma greater than a critical value sigma c, then we have a cavitation free operation. Why it is so? Qualitatively understand, sigma c is a critical cavitation parameter, sigma greater than sigma c is as good as NPSH available greater than a threshold value. So it is at the end qualitatively saying that NPSH available should be greater than a threshold value, so that it is always more than NPSH required to overcome cavitation or to avoid cavitation. So if you plot eta versus sigma, eta is the efficiency of the pump, you will have a sort of behavior like this, which is typically obtained from experiments. It is like this. So what are the typical features of this graph? So from so this is typically the sigma c, the critical cavitation parameter. So if sigma is greater than sigma c, it is not disturbing the efficiency. Now a very interesting thing occurs when sigma just falls less than sigma c. So here what happens, first bubbles are formed. So when the bubbles are formed, these bubbles form a very nice blanket on the blade. So the blade friction decreases because of that. That is why there is a momentary increase in efficiency, you can see. So it is not just cavitation has occurred and therefore it is a reduction in efficiency. So there is a initial inception of bubbles, the bubble layer is now forming as a blanket on the blades, so it is reducing the blade friction. But with more and more deviation from sigma c, obviously one can see that these bubbles are now all around in the flow and they are creating the catastrophe of cavitation, and that is why the efficiency is dropping sharply as sigma falls significantly below sigma c. All these results one may also plot in terms of say a sigma c versus the specific speed, because one may relate the sigma with the specific speed. So if you have this one, then typically this graph is divided into 3 regions. One is a dangerous region, this is a sort of doubtful region, and this is a sort of safe region. Now can you tell that for a system to avoid cavitation, sigma c should be less or more? Sigma c, it should be less, because then sigma has a greater chance of becoming more than sigma c, right. So you can see that the safe region is this sigma c. So if you consider that sigma is greater than sigma c, then it is sort of like, so if you now see here that as you increase the specific speed, what happens? As you increase the specific speed, the sigma c increases, right. That means the chance of sigma to be more than sigma c will be less and less, and that is why you cannot indiscriminately increase the specific speed to have a design of the pump. So we have not talked about a pump with a specific speed of 1000, 2000, 10,000 like that, because such specific speed might have a very high discharge, in some way it is good, but with a higher specific speed you will have a higher value of sigma c to be in the safe region, and then there will be a less chance of sigma becoming greater than sigma c, and that will have more cavitation prone situation. Okay. So these are some of the practical considerations that go behind the design of a pump. In the next class we will be working out some examples or problems on the features of the centrifugal pump that we have discussed before we move on to the turbines. Thank you.